I really mean it. Thank you to all Patreon donors, past and present, all tiers. You guys rock. So anyway, yeah, Benny Boy here, and I'm going to do a little commentary for episode number 271 of Oddity Archive, the Halloween special from 2023, also known as Season of the Wince. A little play on Season of the Witch, Halloween 3, which this is ostensibly a parody of. So this also wound up being kind of the last part of an unintentional trilogy on my part. So in 2021, I had gotten a pair of Videonics pieces of gear, an MX1 video mixer and a Title Maker 3000. And I spent forever making that episode, but I didn't know what I was doing with the gear. And in the end, the episode was much more about me trying to figure out the gear and have something, at least on a technical level, watchable. But I wound up kind of slacking on everything else. I had never really done costume stuff before, and it's just me kind of hitting all the first-time potholes. So the following year, I figured I'd try it again and try and work a little more on the plot. And instead, I wound up going in the opposite direction way too far, and everything was belabored, the costumes were too much, and everything was kind of forced in. So I figure, okay, one more time, 2023. Let's see if I can finally hit the sweet spot. And I think I sort of succeeded. I really wish I had more time to work on this. I mean, I spent a month plus working on the 2021 video, and then a little under a month on the 2022. This one I think I had to knock out in just under 3 weeks. Now, I've discussed it publicly a few times now, but my father has dementia, has for a long time. But starting in 2023, we were reaching the point where he was going to have to be accompanied 24/7. Somebody would always have to be with him. And I could just see what was coming down the pike. So it wound up being the last half of 2023, me just trying to wrap up as many long-term projects and more ambitious archive episodes as I could. And this was chief among them, at least as far as the episodes go. The other big project was the archive soundtrack, which came out a few days or a week or so before this video dropped, and download only. Then about a month later, I got hard copies out the door. But anyway, let's talk about this episode here. So the clock at the beginning read 8:25, but this sketch wound up running longer than I thought it would. I had to kind of guess the whole way. So it should have read more like 8:23, because even though this sketch on paper is only like 2/3 of a page, it just wound up being a lot longer than I thought it would be. But one thing I've done with the whole KLAK TV idea, that I run my own TV station, the last of America's analog TV stations, but it's also a one-man operation. What would I show? Well, wouldn't that mean I have to kind of create my own programming and be my own host and stuff? So one of the things that I figured I would be doing would be hosting some kind of talk show. And of course, the skeleton there, Craig, has been getting used since 2021, used and abused. But it's okay, he abuses me every time I take him out of the damn box. In fact, I should note, Craig is sitting about 3 feet away from me as I'm recording this. Granted, folded up and in his box and in the back of a closet, but he's still around. But he was not meant to be used as a puppet. So trying to get the jaw to move and stuff is always kind of a problem. You can see me kind of forcing the jaw in this little bit here. And one thing I had always wanted to do with Craig, and yeah, I really did slam him against the wall there. One thing I always wanted to be able to do with that skeleton was get into an actual fight with it and actually have him be able to fight back. But obviously that wasn't going to happen. There's only one of me. I would need another person to kind of operate him like a marionette or something to kind of fight back. So I had to kind of create my own fight there. And like I mentioned, I really did slam him against the wall at the end. Of course, I'd mixed out the normal sound by then. Anyway, we're getting our first taste of the Halloween 3 parody, Season of the Witch, 1982, the one movie of the Halloween franchise, effectively without Michael Myers. I threw in my little cameo for Michael Myers there. and an actual Halloween 3 licensed mask, that skull, which will come back into play. But in that movie, the idea is that an evil toy company, Silver Shamrock Industries, is going to sacrifice America's children, I guess, in some sort of weird druid, neo-druid ritual or something. The movie doesn't make all that much sense. But yeah, their theme song was based on London Bridges falling down. I made it into Old MacDonald Had a Farm, and I had a hell of a time recording it. And this bit here, Benny Bob Yankton's pumpkin carving, is really admittedly just kind of a cheap shot at South Dakota and this entire region. One bit of culture shock I've never quite gotten over since I've lived here is how people just kind of compulsively mow their lawns, and everything is a little too normie as far as I'm concerned. I call it normie, where it's just you do everything that is so overwhelmingly normal that it almost becomes self-parody after a while. So I kind of threw in some jabs at the whole white trash thing, you know, paying off a tattoo and all that. Now that bee footage that's in there with the pumpkins, see, I'm saying it now, that was shot actually at a drugstore nearby. I did not visit a proper pumpkin patch. I had a kind of a hard time with the green screen, if you will, on that one. And of course, I'm holding up an actual pumpkin in lieu of my cardboard box with that ad. And I did like 7 takes because I couldn't remember all the dialogue. And admittedly, a little of it was improvised. But by the end of that take I used, you can see I'm just kind of trembling with that pumpkin because I'm not used to just holding random heavy items up. So anyway, now let's get into the proper Halloween 3 parody here. So my voiceovers on this, because I have to be the continuity announcer too, it is me inebriated, playing inebriated at least, and that ties into Halloween 3. The main character, played by Tom Atkins in the movie, is a burned out doctor who's also an alcoholic. And so for my purposes, I, for obvious reasons, warped it into a burned out broadcast engineer and who is drinking on the job. Although I'm drinking because I know what's coming, because in years past, it's me fighting with the dreaded EAS bot using the Speakonia program, which I believe was also responsible for the voice of the infamous Bonzi Buddy. But on this ad, I'm going to take a slight detour here. This ad is case in point why I was kind of on the fence about doing a 3rd year of this being a supposed off-air recording, which it was. I mean, I really did broadcast this very, very watered down, very, very low-powered Part 15 style, like low-powered enough that it wouldn't leave my own home. And some detail got lost when I was doing this, and oh boy, this is going to get the video a content ID match. Some French company seems to think they own Jesse James Meets Frankenstein's Daughter, even though it's public domain, and I'm using a very, very cheap, unrestored copy of it, like you would get on archive.org. But I guess I'm going to get to fight with it. But anyway, getting back to the, I guess you could say the filtering, when I did the broadcast of this, it kind of sucked the detail out of my own camera work because I wanted it to look very stark 90s videotape. And all the cameras on this, I did not use my normal cameras for this. I used a Sony Digital 8 Handycam and a really, really low-end Samsung Mini DV camcorder, both running into a DVD recorder, a consumer one like you would have found back in the 2000s. And that wound up being how I did most of the footage. The Videonics gear also ran into the DVD recorder. Some of those transitions were done live. This stuff with the EAS was done on a normal computer later on a Windows machine. But anyway, as I was saying, the detail that I wanted kind of got lost, and there's some fine quirks to those Videonics pieces of gear. So what I think I'm going to do, even though it's going to be a problem with the movie footage, is I think I might put together another cut of this episode. We'll call it the in-house edition, so you can really see just how cheap and stark the actual footage was, because that's one thing that's kind of bugged me about all three of these videos here. Cute. I don't think you can. I think I can safely say that I am out of jokes and puns to use with EAS and EAN. I was really reaching for egregiously aggravating notification just for this one. That's what happens when you're constantly making fun of the emergency alert system for over a decade. But anyway, this is also setting up what's to come. Of course, even though this is ostensibly a Halloween 3 parody, there is just for budgetary reasons, time reasons, and so on, I can't make it an explicit parody. And plus, I just wanted to wrap up some of the stuff from the previous 2 years, so that's why I brought back the bot, so he could be the villain, as it were, and just, you know, get this whole, what in the end amounts to a very, very strange movie in the can, if you want to add up all 3 episodes. So anyway, coming out of this bit, we're gonna see me in my first costume, and that is, I knew I wasn't gonna get away with a proper Tom Atkins. Now, of course, in the movie he wore the members-only jacket, and Tom Atkins had the early 80s porno stash, and he was just kind of the archetypical early 80s manly man. Something that I know I would never be able to pull off. And it's just as well, because if I'm a burned out broadcast engineer who's been drinking, I'm going to be a doughy middle-aged guy. And so that, the joke just set itself up there. Now, as far as that sweet, sweet stash, because I was and still am, you know, taking care of my father 5 days a week and even a bit beyond that, I didn't want to grow a mustache, a real proper one, for the video because he has a hard enough time recognizing me already. That would have been something I wouldn't necessarily have been opposed to, just in the name of having a little more realism. Although the trick would be that I would have to lose it partway through the episode. So if I screwed something up, that was just it. But anyway, will see me in a members-only jacket that I fleabait that had something, some sort of stain that I couldn't identify, and I don't know if I really wish to identify, but it doesn't show, thankfully, in the footage. And another part of that costume was the watch I was wearing, and I very, very recently did a Ben's Junk video on the Casio CMD-10, which is a kind of a novelty watch that could kind of sort of operate a lot of VCRs. So here we go. I'm in the first costume here, and of course the mask is a proper licensed Halloween 3 mask. It's intended to be as close to the same one that Tom Atkins wore in the movie when he's tied to a chair trying to escape and save the America's kids from the wrath of their silver shamrock masks that can just magically unleash all sorts of bugs and snakes and stuff. Again, it's you really have to suspend disbelief for that movie, but that's kind of what makes it fun. Now, as for that mask, I've got a very, very big Uncle Fester head. I'm one of those guys that I can't, like, if I want a hat, I can't just go to the store and buy one. I have to order it because nothing off the rack ever fits. And, well, those masks are meant for somebody with an average-sized head, and I really had to cram myself into that thing. And as one would expect, with it being truly tight on me, I was sweating a lot, and it was very uncomfortable. Those masks never smell good when you're under one, even if it fits properly, even if it's got proper nose ventilation and all that. But I will never forget, after actually shooting this bit, The first take, which is not the one that was used, I wound up refining it a bit. I took off the mask and was going to lean down into the camera to show the mustache, but I got a whole shower of my own sweat, and I had to stop the recording of it because I just couldn't get past it. It was just a little too nasty. So that will forever stand out to me. Now, one thing I wanted to do for this episode was have real proper bumpers with music and everything, but I just simply didn't have time. So I just threw together on the title maker using the existing font for one of the other bumpers that I made, just retyping "We'll be right back," and then me just recording whatever vocals I could do very quickly that were hopefully in some degree of tune with each other. But yeah, I wanted it to be a little more elaborate than that, but it just didn't happen. So anyway, we are getting into the climax of this whole business here. And again, in the movie Halloween 3, Tom Atkins is tied to a chair, being forced to watch the big giveaway, as it were, that's going to trigger the mask and have a bunch of bugs eat his flesh off and stuff. So in this case, obviously, I had no way of reproducing it, so I just kind of turned it into a really, truly, willfully cheap parody. I am allegedly tied to my chair that I'm sitting in right now recording this with actually a old lanyard cord strap, whatever you want to call it, that I had right there in my hand that I had kicking around, that I just cut open and kind of pretended to tie under my wrists or onto my wrists so I could, get off easily, get out of the chair easily, and do the rest of the bit. And there's all that work for 1 second of a mustache. So I guess it's for the best I went with a fake one. And I forgot to mention earlier, with that mustache, I kind of wanted, almost in a way, to actually grow one, because you can get 3 colors of them, fake ones, that are any decent ones. They're blonde, ginger, or black. But I don't really fit into any of those categories. I'm more of just kind of a plain brown. But thankfully, I picked out the ginger one. It worked well. It looked reasonably good there for the 1 second it's on screen. So I guess it was just me way overanalyzing something very, very simple. Now, of course, in Halloween 3, you can see like lasers shooting out of the TVs, and because that actually had something resembling a budget, but I couldn't do that, so I had to settle for kind of whacking away on the buttons on the Videonics, which was not being used in this particular bit. The crossfade came from another recording. But some of it is live, I should note. Some of it I was having to sit there and engineer, as it were, as I was performing, which was not fun or easy. And the 2022 episode is especially bad for that one. I had to do that a lot on the fly as I was trying to act, as it were. And I'm not much of an actor. This is really me stretching my acting chops here. But in the movie, at one point you do see a mask spit out a bunch of snakes and stuff. Obviously, I couldn't reproduce a bunch of bugs and all that. So I just kind of had to settle for screaming and stuff, and just pretending that, of course, given that the evil bot is not very bright, it started spitting out a bunch of ladybugs instead of snakes and stuff. And that is the horror ending. But I didn't want it to be quite that heavy, so I made another ending with this, which was really just to take the opportunity to finish up a bit of unfinished business, and that is with the same costume I had been wearing the 2 previous years. But I think I had finally figured out the makeup end of things and all that, so I wanted to just take one last stab at it to see that, show more accurately that I could do it with some degree of competence. And so that's the only reason that I jammed myself back into that outfit again one last time. And I should note, this was all shot on the same night, the Tom Atkins stuff, if you will, and then this bit here. And I was just going crazy with the green screen stuff here. You can see the effects of that moving around in the back there. But yeah, so by the time I shot this bit, I think it was like 12:30 a.m. It was a very, very late night. Not quite as late as one of the nights I had shooting the 2021 episode, which I think lasted till like 2:30 in the morning. But yeah, I got it over the finish line. I got one last cute little pun in with the bot. You finally get to hear Stan, as he calls him, as opposed to Satan, taking the piss out of Satan there. And yeah, just finally just ending it properly.
Okay, what happened to him?
Misfire.
Get it? Misfire? Yeah. Nick Bertling on drums, Hugo Lee on tenor sax. Good night, Archive Land, wherever you are. My little Frank Zappa nod there. Anyway, that's going to be it for this commentary. If you bothered to listen, thanks for listening. I'll talk to you again soon.